technique with these long takes? How does it? Where do you rehearse at? Where do you improvise? How close are you sticking to the script?
Well, we do quite a bit of rehearsals, sort of leading up, and we'll take a look at the scenes in the rehearsals, and sometimes we'll just sort of take a look at the scene and then sort of throw the scene away and have a gist of the scene, but as you say, sort of improvised dialogue.
The scene where you and Carey Mulligan are sitting on the sofa, which is pretty intense.
Yeah.
That scene in particular.
Yeah.
Could you talk about how you did that?
We did, and that was one scene that we rewrote. Through the sort of rehearsal period, we had scenes like that. Marianne, how do you find those sort of awkward, vulnerable and sort of sweet moments in a sort of, a genuine first date? And so you play around with each other. You're both coming from various places, and you can bring your own sort of information into the story. And I very much sort of did that with the Marianne situation. And with the Carey situation, we rehearsed the scene in the apartment, I think 2 or 3 weeks before the scene we played it. And so Steve is always then writing down dialogue. He's like, oh, I like that line. And so he'll write down, take notes, and then we sort of, rewrite the script. But for a lot of it, it was as is. So it's sort of pick and mix. It's sort of where it works and where it doesn't.
And how many takes would you ordinarily do?
It depends,
Sometimes
when it's right,
yeah.
it's right, and when it's not, we keep going. And it's sort of it's great because when you're doing sort of long takes like that, it's not only sort of the people in front of the camera that have got to be super focused and sort of and engaged. It's the whole crew, and that creates a really interesting atmosphere in the room, which I think the camera sort of can pick up, and it's a tenable sort of it's an energy in the room that I think it gets sort of whatever that thing in the map box there, it reads things, and it's and that energy was what we definitely sort of had around Hunger, and again in New York. Fantastic crew in New York, great people, super talented, and just and just good people as well, and fun. And we had fun on set too, It seems,
even though it seemed a little grim, but you also must have recognized reading the script and knowing what was called for. You must have had a little bit of trepidation, or do you just say, "This is it. I'm going for it. I'm going to be exposed. I'm going to be literally exposed and vulnerable."
Yeah.
I mean, what was your thinking about that?
Well, I had sort of agreed to do it before I got the script. Steve told me in 2008. He's like, got this idea, told me it, and I was like, cool. I was like, well, if you want me, I'm on board. Just tell me where and when. And then I got a script in 2010. So for those couple of years, since he sort of, had told me about the idea, I was already thinking. So I was expecting the worst. I think my imagination was worse than the script. And so I was ready to do it. You know what I mean? Of course, you feel awkward and you feel, a bit self-conscious. Well, for sure, self-conscious. But then you just got to get over it really quickly because those scenes are of the more sort of intimate nature, or lack of, in Brendan's case. The sexual scenes, or when he's sort of relieving himself or masturbating, it's important for me to get over that shit because I have to. I'm allowing the audience into various components of this addiction that he's got and personality traits. I'll elaborate on that a little bit. It's like, for example, the scene that he has with the prostitute. You can see that there's a ritual at play there that he uses to control, and it's a controlled environment. So you see, okay, here's a guy that knows exactly what he wants and is in controlling all his environment. You see his flat's very tidy, his apartment, and it's very sparse, and he dresses very cleanly, almost in a sort of OCD manner. And then you see the sort of sex scene that he has with the woman in the hotel room directly after he fails to sort of connect with Marianne because it's just too close, the intimacy, and he can't deal with that. And so the next scene with the random woman in the hotel is very physical, fast, desperate, not desperate, but sort of reasserting himself, if you like. And then you have the scene, with Dee Dee and Calamity, and the camera is, it's almost like Steve says, a foursome, and you see in that threesome with the two girls, all of it, like this sort of the lust, the sort of the need for the fix, the sort of you know, how lost he is, the sort of desperation, the shame, the disgust,
And pain.
and the pain.
It was not erotic. It was painful.
Exactly. Yeah. So.
And disturbing. So the other question I have for you is, you're going to work with him again on 12 Years of Slave. Is that script anywhere near finished? I mean, is there something you're working with at this point?
I have read it. It's beautiful. It's definitely a finished script, as far as I know. I mean, I don't know if they're going to do any.
And what
further
is your
drafts.
part in it?
I can't
Oh,
really
you're
say
not
anything.
allowed. And where are you on the Jarmusch movie with Wasikowska, your Jane Eyre co-star?
Yeah, I don't know what's happening there, to be honest. Can't really say either. All I know is sort of for next year, definitely sort of, well, as definite as anything can be until you're sort of on set working on it. The Steve's job is the only thing that I've sort of booked in for next year.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, that's understandable, given how hard you've been working. We didn't even talk about Jane Eyre and Dangerous Method. Now, Dangerous Method. So the thing about the character you play in The Hunger is in Shame is almost a lot of what you're expressing is silent. It's not so much about dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas A Dangerous Method is so opposite.
Yeah.
It's like you're uptight, you're
Yeah.
contained, you're in your clothes.
Yeah.
Even when you get it together with Keira Knightley, but it's
Yeah.
much more about words.
Yes, absolutely. And that was definitely, you know, the first challenge and something that I had to sort of attack immediately.